This is Honkai Star Rail's first livestream for patch 1.1. Overall, I'm going to be giving you a quick summary of each and every one of the banners, my recommendations going forward, and then the events will be afterwards. Your primary 5-star characters will be Luocha and Silverwolf. Silverwolf is a quantum debuffer from the Nihility Path. This means that she's an individual who solely focuses down on giving the enemy a debuff to allow your DPS to deal further damage. If you're summoning on her, please prepare to get a bunch of Danhungs and Asta, alongside Serval. As for the value of that banner, I'd say it depends. If you have Zila and QQ built up, or either one of them built up to a high degree, then that banner may be pretty good for you. The characters on it, you can disregard Danhung unless you actually use him, in which case, hey, good job. If you're looking at somebody else like Asta, her biggest issue is that if you're using Zila or Zila, especially with Adelan 2, the speed buff won't be as beneficial because you already have so much speed. So her value is either going to be a 7 out of 10 in my opinion, in which case it's a recommended pull for your mono elemental and mono quantum teams, or it's going to immediately drop down to a don't pull at all, simply because if you don't have Zila, if you don't have the units who can fully take advantage of that debuff, then her value isn't worth it, especially if you don't have Bailu, because if you don't have Bailu, Luocha's next. He's an imaginary healer, and not imaginary as in he doesn't exist. I mean imaginary solely in that he is the imaginary element. And as of right now, the only other unit we have of that same archetype is Welt, and Welt is a 5-star standard character. A lot of units early game, a lot of enemies early game are weak to imaginary, so he has that benefit. He's a tank healer hybrid. He can take a lot of your damage. My recommendation is please put him next to a preservation character because it kind of gives a little bit of a buffer between your other units who may take damage. He has stiff competition. Bailu has a revive, invigoration, which heals your parties whenever they take damage, and a ultimate that does a party-wide heal. Her skill also heals multiple targets, potentially at least. Whereas Natasha has the cleanse, the party-wide heal, the healing over time, the automatic self-healing if she drops below a certain point. His competition is steep. For a lot of you though, he's the only way you're gonna get guaranteed healer unless you got lucky already with your Bailu. So a lot of free-to-plays may be in a position to where you may want Silverwolf, but you may be more inclined, at least if you want to push further into the game, to pick up a Luocha. My recommendation though is, if you honestly hate the character, skip him. Play who you want, and if you really want Silverwolf, go for her. The game doesn't have or reward you enough in terms of the endgame content to make it worthwhile to push into that as of right now. Now, despite all of the things I just mentioned about the other healers, from Bailu to Natasha, the biggest caveat to Luocha as an individual is that he's universal. What I mean by this is that yes, despite him being imaginary and some enemies not necessarily having a weakness to him, he can be slotted into any team and the value he provides is basically the same. At the end of the day, what you're running this character for is for the healing bonus he has, and for the healing purposes he has. His entire point of existing on your team is to both tank damage and help your team survive. Regardless of his elements, he can do that no matter what. Silverwolf as an individual solely relies on you running either quantum teams or mono elemental teams, which once again is quantum. And so as a result, her value is dependent on you having either a specific subset of units or a specific plan going forward. Luocha's value is just you playing the game. Unlike Genshin Impact, where we started the game off with Bennett and a Chi-Chi and a Jean, and then you had Barbara as a free character, this game started out with Bailu as your 5-star rare one and Natasha as your only specifically given free character, as your free healer. And so the value of Luocha skyrockets tremendously based on your account as of right now. If you want more healers and you want to push into harder content, he's worth it. If you don't have Bailu, he's worth it. If you don't have Welt, he's worth it. So I'd honestly say, at the end of the day, no matter where you're standing, unless you absolutely hate this character, prioritize him first and then go for anyone else second. And you're getting Yukong, a Harmony character who's like Jin Yun. I see it as a win-win. Outside of this, the light cones, once again, hit or miss. Nihility characters aren't that common, so Silverwolf's light cone can be a bit debatable. Luocha's light cone, his competition is Bailu's, and being blunt, Bailu's light cone is pretty good. The additional damage and healing is nice, but even if you're talking about 4-stars, shared feelings and any of the ones that restore energy make his kinda iffy. Now, before I get into the events, I want to make this clear. This is the first patch. This means that essentially they're going to be the most generous with this, and this is going to look the best. If you aren't used to HoYoverse games, do understand that they may fluctuate with the rewards they give. This may be a big event, vaguely similar to Genshin Impact's Lantern Rite, in which case the smaller events will be like the fighting ring we have right now, which gives some rewards but not nearly this much. So with that in mind, the updates we got in general, the chat system so you can message your friends if you need them to change their supports maybe, or you just want to talk. You have a treasure hunt event, you have combat-based events, more combat-based events, and then fulfilling requests. These all give a bunch of rewards, from Tracks of Destiny, which are basically your crowns and unlock heavy traces, alongside the bonuses you will get from self-modeling resin, which allow you to pick a main stat from any relic set you want. This, in my recommendation, in my personal opinion, should be used in either the planar sphere for stuff like Inert South Soto or Space Sealing Station, or the main body piece, because getting crit rate or crit damage, whatever one your character needs, is incredibly important. Alongside that, if you really don't know what to pick out, my recommendation would be evaluate the unit you're trying to build or want to build in the future, look at what domain they're in, and then really decide where you should be putting that effort into and that self-modeling resin in. I personally will be using this on Genuine's body piece or his chest piece for the crit rate. The events are nice, the bonuses are nice, and the quality of life, however slight they may be, are nice overall. The login event we get gives you 10 free pulls. My recommendation to you is to please not expect this generosity in this level of events going forward. I think this is a big patch. I think as of right now, they're putting all the cards into this. And if you're a Genshin player, you know we're devoid of content in that game right now. We aren't getting any new main story quest additions, so if you're currently looking forward to that, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to wait. Overall, my evaluation at the end of the day is going to be for free-to-plays. If you don't have Bailu, Luocha is your first and biggest primary option, because he's your only way to guarantee picking up a healer. If you have Zilla and QQ, pick up a Silverwolf if you want to, but please keep in mind you won't get Yukong on the way. So you do have to kind of negotiate where you want your summons to go to, because Yukong may be a great buffer for speed, for attack, we don't know. And if you're a whale, you know what you're gonna do. You're gonna pull both, or your favorite character. I want Silverwolf a lot. I don't care about Luocha, but I gotta pull him for a guide. In terms of 4 stars, many of you should just go, and most likely will just go for Luocha's banner because you want Yukong. And I understand, Harmony characters are great.